So threats to measurement validity. What I have listed here is measurement artifacts. Basically, the data gives a misleading picture of the behavior because of how it was measured. So I wrote a little chart here. I don't know if you can see it or if it's backwards, but it says continuous measurement is for discontinuous behavior. So all the instances of a response class in a given period of time is continuous measurement. So that would include partial interval recording, which is whether a behavior occurred at all during that period, during any time in the interval. Like, did it occur, yes or no? So if it did occur, you would mark it off. Whole interval recording, they would have to, this behavior would have to be present for the entire interval. So a common one is staying on task. So at STP, I would be looking for, the operational definition of stay on task was if their eyes were not on the teacher, the materials they were working on, or towards a direction the teacher was referencing, like if I was referencing a map, if they were not looking for 10 consecutive seconds. So there was a lot of times where I would be teaching and I see a kid looking around, obviously not attending, and it would be 9 seconds and then they'd look, and then I'm like, dang it, I can't mark it. So a common problem for whole interval recording is that there's an underestimate of behavior, but it is really good for those high frequency behaviors. But yeah, it underestimates, and partial interval recording actually overestimates. Because think about it, if I measured every 10 seconds that they were not looking, that would be a lot higher frequency than if I did the entire whole interval. They were not attending a lot of the time. Anyway, and momentary time sampling is whether the behavior occurs the moment the interval ends. So I do that for Amanda's data collection and Kara's. We observe for engagement, that's a frequent one. So kind of similar to stay on task. If the moment it ends, we look up and then record if they're on task or if they're not. So that's just an example of continuous measurement used for discontinuous behaviors that are not happening all the time. And discontinuous measurement is used for continuous behavior. So this is a common reason for measurement artifact, right? Let me check. Measurement artifact. So this is a threat to measurement validity. So an incomplete measurement where all the responses during the observation are not necessarily detected. So I don't know a good example for this, to be honest, but the things that they list under it is percentage, the amount of behaviors in a given time period, and trials to criterion. So percentage is like the ratio of the percentage, or the number of responses per certain behavior or per time period, and trials to criterion is a measure of the number of responses for accuracy. So if I'm really interested in Duolingo right now, and there's a certain number of responses I have to get right, I can't miss more than 5 or else I'm kicked out and I need to practice some more. Actually, I don't know if that's a good example. If you had the letter A and you were doing flashcards, it's if you'd have to get them right 2 times before you could move on. That would be an example of trials to criterion. I don't really know how it's a threat to measurement validity, but if anyone knows, let me know. So another threat to measurement validity is poorly scheduled measurement periods. So observation schedules should be standardized. They should happen at the same time, and they should have an equal opportunity for the occurrence or non-occurrence of the behavior per session, and consistent environmental conditions from one to the next. So in English, an example would be, so at STP, some of my kiddos had goals for raising their hand, but so they'd have to, like, their goal was like, oh, I'm going to raise my hand twice a period to earn my behavior goal. But some of them didn't have a lot of opportunities to do that when they, sorry, I got distracted, when we were in a work period. They were just working. So I would make so that would be a threat to measurement validity. It's not a valid measure. We're not measuring what we think we're measuring because there were no opportunities for them to raise their hand. Issues in measurement scaling. So if we're making a limit to percentages, there may be some problems with floor, ceilings, or floor. So if they score really, really low. So like if you set a limit of the max is like 10 problem behaviors, and then they had like 100, or like literally some of these kids would have like 100 verbal abuses for one period, then you would miss all of that other data because you stopped recording. After a certain amount of behaviors, we did stop recording because there was just, I don't know, I wish I had a video to show you guys. But you might not get an accurate representation of the problem behavior. Like, oh, in timeouts, we didn't record behaviors because they were losing a lot of time for not earning points in STP. So they would look like they got like 100% on the point board at the end of the period, but in reality, they didn't because they weren't even present because they were running out of the building. That's one example. I don't know if that makes sense or you need more context, but okay, we're gonna stop that one.